Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So it's the beginning of a new month. It is June 1st, 2025, and that means that we are approximately 1 year and 5 months away from the 2026 midterms, and we haven't done a prediction for 2026 in a little bit over a month, so I thought we would start off the month and we'd do a gubernatorial map, a Senate map, a House map, and we are going to get started today by doing the governor's or gubernatorial map here because there are 38 governorships that are either going to be up later this year, which there's 2, and then there's 36 next fall. So we're going to be filling out this map in today's video. We're going to start off with the safe states and then work our way to the more competitive states. But I will say that this map already has 12 states filled out because these are the 12 states that do not have a governor's election until 2027 at the earliest, in the case of Kentucky, which I think will flip Republican, by the way, Louisiana and Mississippi, and then 2028 you'll have the rest. So without further ado, let's begin. And I think it's important that we just start off with 2025 and then work our way to 2026, just for the sake of doing it in chronological order. And we will start off with the state of Virginia, which again, Donald Trump made closer. It has a Republican governor now, but Winsome Sears is not running the best campaign. It's like nobody knows she's even running a campaign at this point. And it's definitely a state that's going to be tough to win when you have a well-funded, deep state opponent that will get that Democrat base out like there's no tomorrow in the D.C. area. I think that it's probably going to be an under a 10-point win for the Democrats, but still, I think that this one is staying blue, and Republicans should prioritize New Jersey, which again, there's some polling that shows that we could be in for a tough race in New Jersey. Republicans actually might have a shot, but still, it is a blue state without, Donald Trump on the ballot to energize a lot of those lower propensity voters. Are Republicans really going to be favored? I mean, it's possible they could win it. I give them about a 40% chance, but still, I really think that it's a little bit of an uphill climb in New Jersey because of the fact that this is a state that is still a Democrat state, especially in an election, which is an off-year election. Although it is true that Phil Murphy's approval is worse than it was back in 2021 when he only won against who is probably going to end up being the Republican nominee by 3 points. So I think it's going to be competitive. I'm just not ready to say that Republicans are going to win it, although it's possible. It just, the energy factor with a lot of Democrats energized in these off-year elections as of right now, I'm not ready to say Republicans are favored in a state that, even though it was close and competitive, still voted for Kamala Harris by 6 percentage points, although I think it's going to be a close race, don't get me wrong. So without further ado, I think it's important that we move on to the safe Republican 2026 governorships here, and these will include the state of Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, Florida I think goes 10 plus. I think Texas, Abbott will win by 10 plus, and Vermont, which they have a very liberal Republican governor, but he is an electoral juggernaut there, so that's why that's going to be safe Republican. Now, on the Democrat side, I think California, it could be interesting if Republicans could put up a solid candidate. We'll see what happens there. I think Hawaii will be safe Democrat. Colorado, although I think the margins are going to be closer, depending on the nominee, than it was in 2022. Also, you have the state of Massachusetts and Maryland. Those will be in the safe Democrat column. And honestly, I think that might be it. So we're going to be moving on to the likely Republican states, the states that are going to vote Republican by 5 to 10 percentage points. We could start off with Alaska. We don't know who is going to be the nominee for the Democrats. If Mary Peltola runs, maybe it could be a little bit more competitive, but still, Alaska's a red state, and Peltola couldn't even hold on to her House seat in 2024, so it's not like she's going to be this electoral juggernaut for the Democrats, but it can make it more competitive. Also, Nevada, Lombardo's pretty popular incumbent governors in general, if they are popular or even just above water, they really don't lose very often, if at all. And I think Nevada is going to be another example when Lombardo wins by upper single digits. Also, the state of Kansas, this one is going to be very interesting because of the fact that the Democrats currently hold the governorship, but Republicans are favored because it is a state that voted for Donald Trump by 16 points. Even if it has been closer in some of these midterm years or at the state level, it should remain in the Republican column. Also, you have the state of New Hampshire, where Kelly Ayotte is popular, and now she has the incumbency advantage working in her favor. She really should have no problem winning re-election in the state of New Hampshire. So we also, I think, have one more, and that would be the state of Ohio. Vivek Ramaswamy is somebody that I think has a lot of question marks about how well he's going to perform, but he is a hell of a campaigner. He does have a lot of money and can self-fund his campaign. Ohio has just gone to the right recently by a lot, especially the MAGA right. I think it depends on who his opponent is. Somebody like Sherrod Brown could make it more competitive, but the Ohio Democrats are just a relatively incompetent party, and I think Vivek, despite possibly having some skeletons in his closet and angering some of the base even, I think he's going to win by, 5 to 6 points, I think is fair, which would put it in the likely column. So we'll move on to the Democrat side of things. We'll start off with Oregon. Oregon is a state that typically hates their Democrat governors. Even in 2018, the blue wave year, they only reelected Kate Brown by I think 5 points or so. Democrats should win. They should hold on, but Tina Kotek is really not that popular in the state of Oregon. Also, New Mexico. The Republican Party of New Mexico is just incompetent. I do think that because it's an open seat, it's possible that this race could end up being more competitive. But as things stand right now, I think likely blue is just about right. Also, the state of Minnesota. I don't think Tim Walz is going to run for re-election. He might even go for Senate, if not try to mount a presidential bid in 2028. But the Republican Party, I don't think they're really going to compete much for Minnesota just because of the fact that, this is a state where their party is completely broken, and also it being a midterm year, a lot of lower propensity Trump voters that can make the state closer in presidential years may not be as likely to show up, but still, it's way too early to say for sure, but I think right now, D+7, somewhere in that ballpark is about right. Also, the state of Illinois. Again, I don't expect Republicans to win, but Illinois is a state that really has soured on their governors. Pritzker, he faced a challenger in 2022 who nobody really saw as all that strong or electable, and still it was just about as close as Michigan was at the governorship level. So either way, I think that it's a state where Republicans could possibly compete. It's not going to matter as much for down ballot effects because Democrats have gerrymandered the hell out of the state to their benefit, but still it is true that statewide, could I see it being under 10? Yeah, I could. Definitely. Same thing goes for Connecticut. Same thing goes for Rhode Island. Too early to tell, but in New England, you do have this tendency for Republican candidates at the gubernatorial level to overperform, especially if they're decent enough candidates. Connecticut was close in 2018. Rhode Island, McKee is not all that popular, so maybe he could face somebody that could give him a run for his money, but I still expect him to win by over 5 points when it's all said and done. So also that leaves us the state of Maine, where I would expect the Democrats to win. If Jared Golden was their nominee, I think he'd win by more than 10, but he's running for re-election. And honestly, I think he's going to lose re-election, by the way. I think this is finally going to be the year, especially as Paul LePage is going to be running against him. But still, Maine, it's a blue state. Donald Trump couldn't even get it within 5, despite almost out of nowhere winning the state of New Hampshire. So regardless, I expect Maine to stay in the Democrat column. So that leaves us with one more state in the likely Democrat column, Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro, he is, in my opinion, going to significantly underperform his 2022 performance, and him kind of becoming more of a national figure is going to play into that. But still, he is a relatively popular governor. His approval rating is still above 50%, if not above 55, depending on the poll. But I do think Republicans could mount a strong challenger to give him a run for his money and help out down ballot. So still, Pennsylvania will very likely reelect Josh Shapiro. I can't see him losing, but could I see it being closer? Could I see it even being under 5, depending on the candidate? Like if Stacey Garrity goes for it, maybe, but I don't think that it would be a race where Republicans are going to have much of a shot to win, but competing could help out down ballot significantly. And that leaves us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 states that are going to be in the lean or tilt column, the toss-up states for 2026. And New York is one of them, which will surprise a lot of people. But when you have Kathy Hochul that's extremely unpopular, it's not really all that surprising. She's only up over Elise Stefanik by 1% in the latest poll in the state. And I think that if she gets the nomination, which I expect her to do because she is just popular enough to win the nomination, but she's just unpopular enough to the point where Republicans could compete for this governorship. Either way, I think that it's just still a state that's too blue, and I think the Democrats will hold on, but I think it's going to be really close, and maybe things could change depending on her approval rating and how solid of a campaign the eventual Republican nominee is going to run. So Michigan, this is going to surprise people because it's one of those Rust Belt states where if Trump's not on the ballot, especially in like a midterm year, Republicans tend to struggle a bit. But still, this is also a state where you're going to have essentially a 3-way race for governor in 2026. And Republicans are running a very strong candidate in John James, who I would expect to get above 45% of the vote. And if Mike Duggan, who is a popular Democrat turned independent mayor of Detroit, if he's able to go out there and win a sizable percentage of the vote in the Detroit area and James just cleans up everywhere else, yeah, I would expect this as of right now to end up in the Republican column. Doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. We could see Duggan drop out and endorse the Democrat. That definitely would throw a wrench in things. But still, I do expect that to be a competitive governorship. And also the state of Georgia, none of the strong Democrat recruits are running. Keisha Lance Bottoms is probably going to end up being their nominee, who's basically a Stacey Abrams clone. And it might even be a little bit generous to the Democrats, depending on what the result is at the end of the day, to put this in the lean Republican column. But either way, it's a state where the midterm propensity actually favors the Republican Party, unlike in the Rust Belt. And I would expect the Republicans to hold on to Georgia at the state level, even though the state has been moving to the left lately due to growth in metro Atlanta. So Wisconsin is a state where you have a governor who probably does go for re-election, and he's not all that popular, Tony Evers. He is somebody who is a woke grandstander. He tried to change the Constitution from the word mother to say inseminated persons. He flies the gay flag at the state capitol every June. It's like this guy is just a woke type of guy, and he hasn't done anything, and many metrics in the state have gone down since he's taken over. And I think Republicans, if they can find the right candidate, somebody like an Eric Hovde, to run a strong campaign against him, I do believe that this is a state they can flip. But it's too early. We don't know who exactly is going to run. We don't even know if Evers is going to run. From what I've heard, he's leaning towards running. He probably will make that announcement soon. But it's a state that I think he's vulnerable. He's kind of like the Joe Biden of Wisconsin, essentially. And he could go down against the right candidate. But as of right now, I'd err on the side of caution and say tilt Democrat. So now we have the state of Iowa. And this is going to be interesting because you have a very strong Democrat challenger, and you have a weak Republican incumbent governor who consistently polls as the most unpopular governor in the country. However, the state did vote for Donald Trump by 13. It voted to reelect that unpopular governor, Kim Reynolds, by 17 in 2022. It's a state that still is a red state, but you have the state auditor who also won in the same ballot, facing possibly Brenna Bird, the attorney general, who didn't win by much, but also was facing a strong incumbent as well. So either way, I think that the state's going to be closer than 2024, especially because it's at the state level, and it's a state where you have a lot of ancestral Democrats that somebody like Rob Sane could appeal to. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to go Republican by around 5 points. But depending on the margin, some of those down ballot races could be affected by that. So look out for that. And that leaves us with the state of Arizona. And this is a state where you have a governor who is not very popular consistently. In a lot of polling we've seen, has approval ratings that are underwater. And it's a state that is far more Republican since she barely, quote unquote, won in 2022. And Republicans this time around probably going to put up Andy Biggs, who is somebody that has appeal within the, establishment GOP and the MAGA base simultaneously. And facing somebody like a Katie Hobbs, I do believe that given the Arizona GOP's increased competency compared to 4 years prior, that Biggs is going to end up at the end of the day winning, maybe not by a ridiculous margin, but by enough to win, which is what matters. And that would give the Republicans 29 governorships and the Democrats 21. The Democrats would flip Virginia. The Republicans would flip Michigan, assuming it stays a three-way race. They would flip Arizona, and they would flip Kansas, which is more than expected given the fact that it's going to be an open seat in a state Trump won by over 15 points. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.